Hey everybody, we're going to start the evening here. The Candidates Night 2016 for Goffstown School and Town Offices. I'm Steve Brzezowski from the Goffstown Lions Club, and when we start our meetings in the Goffstown Lions Club is we do the pledge of allegiance. So if you don't join me in that, please.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First of all, I'd like to thank Goffstown High School for hosting this event again, and the candidates, all the candidates who are here tonight. We appreciate you all coming out. And of course, the live audience that we have here, and GTV, Goffstown Public Television, is here to record the event and be shown intermittently on TV. I'm sure you can look at their website and see when the event will be on there. I want to tell you a little bit, first of all, since the Lions Club is sponsoring this event. The Lions Club is started in 1917. It's now the world's largest service organization. It has 1.35 million members worldwide, 46,000 clubs in over 200 countries around the world. So it's a global organization. The focus of the Lions Club, we have many focuses actually, or foci. Sight and hearing is one. What they look to do is improve sight and prevent blindness. And we have a Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation that gives financial assistance to people who need help getting either eyeglasses or cataract surgery or hearing aids. We also do vision screening. We've done some screening recently in the schools in this area, particularly at Mountain View and at the elementary school and in the other schools in this area. We're helping out with that. We do eyeglasses donations. If you have old eyeglasses, you'll see boxes in the town hall in Goffstown. You'll see them in the post office and other places. That goes to the major places around town. If you have eyeglasses that you're not using anymore, put them in the box, because what we do is we recycle those around. We give them to people who actually rework them and recycle them, do reverse prescriptions on them, and they're used again. So it's really a big part of our program. We also recycle hearing aids. So if you have hearing aids anybody's not using, put those in the box also. Another big part of our focus is education. And we have a huge program here at Goffstown High School where we offer scholarships every year to seniors who are going on to college, higher education. That's been a big part of our deal. And recently, in the last few years, we actually started a Leo's Club, which is like a junior Lions Club here in the high school. We have a very exciting and vibrant group of students at Goffstown High School. They're doing a great job assisting on a lot of different activities, getting a lot of visibility, doing fundraising, and it's really great to see young people really engaged like that. They've been a great addition to our Lions organization in town. We work primarily with the community, and you all probably know about the popcorn stand, which was voted the most iconic figure, the iconic piece of architecture here in town a few years ago. So the popcorn stand, of course, over by Sully's. We run that from Mother's Day on through Labor Day. We do a holiday craft fair. We sell Christmas trees, and we also have a Spring Fest, which is a business and community get together. And this year the Spring Fest is Saturday, April 9th, and it's going to be here at the high school. So don't miss it. Last year was a great kind of resurgence in that event. A lot of all businesses from all over town, community groups, lots of people, fun for kids, all kinds of things we can do with that Spring Fest. So be sure you come out for that. That's Saturday, April 9th. And we also are always looking for new members too. So if you see one of us here today that has the Lions badge on, or if somebody comes up and starts talking with you about Lions, we sure do appreciate you. Come to a meeting sometime, get to know some of the people, see what we do, get more information about Lions, because we're always looking for new members, men and women. And we have 40 some odd people in our club here in Goffstown now, and we're always looking for new members, people who want to get involved and add something. But part of the mission of Lions is to promote the principles of good government and good citizenship. That's why we've been doing these candidates nights for 20 some odd years. And it's been a great event for us. It's been a great event for the community. It's very good to see the candidates come out and make their presentations to the people that are here, and say on GTV also. Well, they say that politics is Hollywood for the unattractive. But hopefully some of the candidates here tonight will set that notion on its head. We've seen a lot of politics. Obviously, you can't live in New Hampshire without being inundated by politics recently. And even though these races are nonpartisan, it's always fun to see how people come out and present themselves. So what I'd like to do now is introduce our moderator, who's going to tell you more rules about the event tonight, our Lion Ken Lawrence.
As you notice, we do not have a microphone. It was decided that a room this size and with this audience would be better if we didn't. So when you are called to come up, please just speak in a nice, loud, clear voice. The camera, I'm told, pick up everything. So anyway, back in September, the Lions Club got together and we go over what all the different projects and everything we do for the year. And it came time for candidates night. And I asked if I could be the moderator. The reason is I've always been very interested in politics. Doesn't matter whether I agree or disagree with the person. I think politics, and especially voting, are extremely important. That we have that right, that we have that freedom to have our voice heard. And I always felt that when you get in a back and forth with someone about the state of, whether it's the economy or the town or whatever, and then that question comes up, well, who did you vote for? They say, well, I didn't bother to vote. I'd rather have someone vote who I totally disagree with than someone who just stays home. Because it's important that you are heard. And anyone who believes that your vote will not count, obviously did not hear about the Manchester mayor's race, which was decided by about 50 votes, or even a more extreme, the 2000 presidential election. Tens of millions of people voted, and that race basically came down to a couple hundred votes. Voting is very important. It's your voice. It's your opportunity to get out and be heard by everyone. So, really excited about tonight. I want to thank all the candidates who are here this evening. And in no particular order, we're going to start with the planning board. This will be Barbara Griffin. And just before Barbara comes up, just a few quick rules. You can speak for about 3 or 4 minutes. Any questions, please hold your questions until after the candidate is done. And again, please be courteous. It's about finding out their position, their views. Any longer conversations you want to have with the candidate, please feel free to do so at the end of the event. I'm also going to ask if you can make sure your phone is either turned off or on silent, just to make sure. And because I don't want to be the one person embarrassed. Yes, it is. So, Barbara, could please come up?
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Lions Club for having me here tonight. And thank you to Ken for apparently taking me at my word on my message. He called my house and said, we're doing candidates night and you're on the ballot and we'd like to see you. And I called back and I left a message and I said, I actually have babysitting duty that night, but I will come, but I need to leave early. So here I am first on the ballot, but I will let you know I got the husband to do the first half of babysitting, so I'm going to stay for coffee and cookies. So good evening. Thank you everybody for coming. I appreciated Ken's words before we started here tonight, because I don't think this is the kind of politics that we've all been hearing about on the news or reading about from our mailbox for the past month and a half. I don't know about you, but I finally got my mailbox used in the last few months. I got a lot more political mail than I've gotten regular mail for a long time. Because I think what we're doing here tonight is governance, and it's governance locally, and I think that's really what governing should be, and somehow politics makes it something else at different levels. I'm glad that we have nonpartisan elections here because it really is about our community and our constituents and learning to live together and have rules that we all sort of live by, like driving on the right-hand side of the street. Well, I'm running for the planning board, and that's really a different kind of rules. The planning board deals with our local zoning ordinance in regards to what individuals can do with their property and what people do in regards to development or moving around the community. The planning board reviews plans that come before our board for approval, which might be things as simple as a lot line adjustment or a big development. We actually have a number of developments approved here in town that haven't begun construction, but that the job of the planning board is to implement zoning ordinances that you've all adopted at town meeting. There'll be some changes on the ballot. By way of introduction about myself, I've lived here in town for a number of years. I actually moved here in 1987 because I got my first job in law. I was a law clerk, having just graduated from law school, and I was going to move to Goffstown for a couple of years and move on. So it's 1987, I'm still in the same house, and I'm still here. I am an incumbent on the planning board. I've had the opportunity to serve there for the past 2 terms, for actually I think a little bit more. And I've had the opportunity to serve here in town on a number of other boards over the years, to include the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. And I'm here tonight asking for your vote to serve another term on the planning board. I think I attend regularly. I've had the opportunity to chair for the last couple of years, and I appreciate that my other board members think that I am suited to do that job, and I look forward to serving on it again with your vote. And go vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next, we have the library trustee, and Jan Soderquist is here. We'll invite her up.
Again, thank you to the Lions Club for organizing this. I have been a member, a resident in Goffstown since 1977. We live in the Grassmere area on Terrell Hill Road. We have 2 children that went to high school here in Goffstown, and we have been really happy in this community and enjoy all the pleasures and all the satisfaction of a small town feeling and a very interested community. I am an owner of a family business which I started approximately 35 years ago. Our family also participates in that business. We're in the medical equipment business, and it originally started in Goffstown in the old War Hospital across from the police station next to the women's prison. We now occupy 28,000 square feet in Manchester on Kennedy Road. The medical equipment business is very important to the healthcare industry. And as you all know, healthcare is one of those very dynamic adventures that you go on. And if you don't like change, healthcare is not what you should be in, because every day there is a new either state or federal regulation that governs your healthcare policies, how they're distributed, how they're paid for, who pays for them, when they pay for them, when they don't pay for them, and on it goes. So my business background has played very strongly in who I am and how I approach problems, and my resilience to change and to cooperate and to understand some of the limitations as it relates to my business and some of the limitations as it relates to providing services to the town. I have a wonderful interest in books, and I frequently read 3 or 4 books at the same time. I don't read them fast, I just kind of move from one to the other. If I get bored with one, I move with the other. So there's just a general informational piece with regard to books. What I offer as I come to you to seek the office of library trustee is, from my business experience, I offer you the ability to have fiscal responsibility.
I am the CEO and CFO for Rehab Equipment Associates, and I take the fiscal responsibility of, obviously, my job as a high priority, and also fiscal responsibility here in the town. We all understand that libraries as a function are in also a state of change, pretty much like the healthcare industry. People are not reading books, they're now going to electronic media, and so there's a blend of trying to meet people's needs and keep people invested in the cultures of libraries and the service that libraries provide. I have been in awe at the wonderful job that the town and the trustees have done in the recreation of our library. They have a limited space and limited areas to work with, and they have been extremely responsible and creative. And I want to, I'm offering the opportunity to volunteer and be part of that continued effort. So once again, I ask for your consideration and your vote for me for library trustee, Janet Soderquist, and I will serve and provide as much help as I can to meeting the needs of that organization. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jan. Some of the candidates could not be here this evening. I know it's some are smart, they're down in Florida, getting away from this wonderful weather. But they did send in some things that they asked me to please read for this evening. And this is from Gary Meehan. Gary is currently an elected member of the Goffstown Library Board of Trustees. He has been a Goffstown resident for the past 35 years and has been a registered architect in the state of New Hampshire for the past 38 years. As an architect, Gary has been assisting the library board in the planning of their proposed 10,000 square foot library addition. His education includes a bachelor's degree in English from Boston College and a master's degree in architecture from the University of Colorado. Gary also served for 6 years in both the New Hampshire and Colorado Army National Guard units. Gary is running for this position because he believes he would continue to be a helpful resource to the community in the planning of a much-needed library addition. His firm designed the elevator and exit stair addition for the library nearly 20 years ago, and he is very familiar with the existing facility. Gary says thank you for considering him for this position. Moving on, next is the sewer commissioner, and I'm going to ask Rob Trapaz to come up. And I guess the big question is, Rob, did I pronounce the name correctly?
You did.
Thank you. Okay.
Ken, thank you, and I'd like to thank the Lions Club for this opportunity to speak and introduce myself. My name is Rob Trapaz. I'm running for a position on the Sewer Commission. I've lived in Goffstown for 8 years with my wife Heather and our 2 young children. I spent the past 20 years working in the water and wastewater field, 12 of which were in a consulting capacity, designing wastewater treatment plants, sewer systems, sewer pump stations, and water plants. Also consulted for a number of sewer commissions and planning boards in both New Hampshire and New York over that time. Presently, I work in a manufacturer's representative capacity where I sell wastewater process treatment equipment. I've been doing that for the past 8 years. If somebody asked me a year ago if I would be here seeking an elected position, I would have said, no way. Politics isn't my thing, and just not interested. But a former colleague of mine approached me in September and suggested that I put an application in for the Sewer Commission because they had an unanticipated vacancy. And I thought, well, you know, this is a good opportunity to use my particular skill set to serve the community that I live in. And the more I thought about that, I thought, geez, this is a really good idea. And I've only been on the Sewer Commission since October, been to a few meetings, but I've really enjoyed my time there, and I think that I make a positive impact because it's a language that not a lot of people speak. Sewers don't become important until there's a mess in the road, or there's a project that costs several $million, and there's a lot of unique considerations that go into planning those projects and also communicating that to the general public, and I think that I can do a good job for Goffstown to that end, and I look for your support at the March meeting. Thank you.
I'd like to add that Rob is running for Sewer Commission. That's for the 2-year post. Also running for Sewer Commission for the 3-year post is Tim Redmond.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tim Redmond, and I'm running for the 3-year term as the Sewer Commissioner. I've been a resident of Goffstown for the past 19 years with my wife, Evelyn, and I have 2 grown children that live in Ware and in Washington, D.C., respectively. I have been a member of the Goffstown Planning Board since 2005. I took a short absence in 2013, and then I was reappointed in 2014 to fill an absence on the board. I was then re-elected to a 3-year term that expires in 2018. I am also completing a 3-year appointed term on the Economic Development Council here in town, but I will not seek another appointment to run for that position again. I believe I'm a good and qualified candidate for the Sewer Commissioner due to my work experience in both the construction industry and the past 5 years as a Public Works Director in the town of Ware. In my capacity as DPW Director, I'm responsible for 4 separate departments, one of which is the Ware Sewer Department. I'm a licensed wastewater operator with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and I've been responsible for budgeting, maintenance, and operation of the town's wastewater system, including emergency repairs and preventive maintenance care of the system. I am running unopposed in this election. However, I am pleased to be invited here this evening to introduce myself. I wish to thank the Lions Club for their annual sponsorship of this event, and I ask for the voters' support in March. Thank you.
Shoulder shot.
Sure.
You gotta see those eyes. Thank you.
Too fast, huh?
You
I
are.
was trying to get out.
Before we started, I was speaking to Steve from the Lions Club, and I said I always try to pronounce people's names correctly, and I got in that habit years ago. I worked in radio, and I used to write commercials and do promotions, and I was also in charge of interviewing a lot of people, which was actually a lot of fun. Got to interview a lot of old rock and roll people like Chuck Berry and Fats Domino and things like that. I interviewed Ed McMahon from The Tonight Show. And one of the things I'd always ask is, how they want their name pronounced. And I'd also ask at the beginning of the interview, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And most of the time, they didn't have an issue, but every once in a while, that statement would come back to haunt me. And it came back, if you remember in the mid-'80s, there was a resurgence of a group called the Monkees. Because most of us here knew them from the 60s, and all of a sudden these young kids saw these 4 crazy guys on MTV, and it's like, hey, there's a new group out called the Monkees, and all us parents and adults going, yeah, we've seen that. So here they were at the top of their game, playing stadiums again, thousands of people, and through some contacts, I was able to get an interview with Peter Tork of the Monkees over the phone. He was out in Los Angeles, and here I am calling him from New Hampshire. I got him on the phone and said, introduced as Peter Tork. He said, yes. And I said, is there anything you don't want to talk about? He says, yeah, don't ask me anything about the Monkees. So 37 seconds later, when that interview was over, but that is a true story, so that does happen sometimes. But anyway, moving on here, we have the selectmen. David Pierce could not be here this evening, but he sent a statement. He asked me to read for him. David and his wife Ruth live on Mill Street in the Goffstown Village area. They have been residents of Goffstown for 9 years. David's professional occupation entailed 20 years in the U.S. Army, with 3 tours overseas, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. This was followed by another 20 years in Virginia in the Washington, D.C. area, working as a senior cartographer and manager in the defense agency responsible for the production of all maps and data needed by the military services. After serving his country for 40 years, David moved to Goffstown and wanted to continue such service, but at a local level. He was first elected to the town's budget committee. Then from 2010 to 2013, David served as a selectman. While disappointed upon losing his bid for re-election by a very close margin, David stayed in touch with town activities through once again serving on the town's budget committee. This allowed David to keep current on department activities, their funding issues, and projects. Also appointed by the planning board to represent Goffstown on the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, David is now in his 4th year in that position. Through this office, David has a role in regional planning for transportation and land development issues, while also learning how other towns in the regions are impacted and address these concerns. Furthermore, David is currently serving as one of the 5 Goffstown state reps, now in his 2nd year of a 2-year term. His experience at the State House in Concord has allowed David to meet more residents of Goffstown and learn of their concerns for both local and statewide issues. Outside of these government roles, David has been active in leadership roles in community organizations, which again allow him to interact with residents. These organizations include the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail, the Goffstown Historical Society, the Goffstown Lions Club, the Goffstown Industrial Corporation, and the Goffstown Harvest Christian Church. David has demonstrated his interest in and support of town and regional activities and feels that he can offer sound guidance for the Goffstown Department as serving as a selectman. David is asking for your vote on March 8th. Okay, moving right along here. Next we have Budget Committee, and this is for 3 years. And first I'll start with Mike Smith.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
I'd like to thank the Lions Club as well as Ken and Gordon for their help in managing this evening and putting it all together. Mike Smith, I live at 14 Pasture Drive. My background is in engineering and operations, and in my career in that area, in the electrical utility area, I've been dealing with a lot of budgets through the years and the whole budgeting process through the years, so I felt this was an area where I could be helpful. My approach during my career has always been to work hard to understand what the budget requests are, what's driving them, what's important about them, what the risks are, and then really understand them enough to be able to help prioritize what the requests are, and then ultimately come to a consensus of balancing those requests against what we have for resources. I've had the privilege of working on being in the budget committee for this past year, and I've brought that approach to my work on the committee. I've taken the time to make sure I speak with all the department heads, really fully understand what their needs are, what their requests are, and I think that's been helpful to me in helping to balance where we should be spending our money and how much we are going to have available. I don't come to this position with an agenda to try to spend more here or less there. I'm really looking to really understand the issues and to try to come to a good balance. I'm really looking to bring my experience and energy to the job and into the whole process and add some value to the process along the way. So with that, I'll ask for your support and turn it back over to Ken.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next is Scott Gross.
Thank you, Ken, and thanks to the Lions Club. Thanks to all the familiar faces here in the audience. And just want to say, Mike, I thought, wow, you pretty much summed up what I was going to say, so I'm done. No, I'm only kidding. Everyone says I talk too much. So my name is Scott Gross. I've lived in Goffstown for over 21 years. I'm married. My wife, Tammy, is here. I also have 2 daughters in college. In terms of my professional background, I'm a claims manager for a major insurance company, and I've been in management for about 22 years now. And similar to Mike, I've had a lot of experience dealing with budgets, multi-million-dollar budgets. So I'm very familiar with that. In terms of my experience locally, I have served Goffstown in a variety of capacities over the years. I served 7 years on the school board, and I see some familiar faces with those I've served with. I served 7 years on the Board of Selectmen, and I've also had about 6+ years on the Budget Committee as a representative of those 2 respective boards. So I'm very familiar with our town and school budgets. So one of the big questions is, why are you running for the Budget Committee? And I think the simple answer there is twofold. One, I did serve on the school board and as a selectman, but I wanted to take a step back and do something a little bit less time-consuming, but still be involved in the community. And in doing so, I asked myself the question, what does the community want from somebody who serves on the Budget Committee? And I think it's kind of twofold. I think they want somebody who is knowledgeable about what are the needs of the town, and what are the and how do we balance that with the ability to pay for that. And that's really the difficulty. And I can tell you that in all of my years serving Goffstown, that can be very challenging, and sometimes people have different sets of priorities. I feel I've always been very good at trying to balance the needs versus the wants and our ability to pay. And also try to get people to reach common ground. Because on the Budget Committee, our job is to prepare the budgets for the school and the town. And ultimately, you, the voters, decide whether or not that's a number that you think you can live with, that you can afford. And I think that's the goal that I always bring forward, is striking that balance between what our community needs to fulfill and provide the services that we demand, balancing that with the taxpayers' ability to pay. The other part that I wanted to convey is that it's not an easy job being on the Budget Committee, and some of you in the audience have served on the Budget Committees, and sometimes you have to say no, and sometimes people don't like that. That's part of the process, but I think the most important thing is to explain why you are not supporting of a particular position or an expenditure, and hopefully people will understand your rationale. Again, I believe I have a wealth of experience in both the school and the town sides, good relationships with department heads and the folks across school and town departments, and I ask for your support in March. Thank you.
I'm not reading text from my wife or anything. Late this afternoon, I got something to read from Emily Sandblade, who could not be here this evening, so I did not have time to print it out. So pardon me while I just read from the phone. This is a text from my wife. No. Every Budget Committee member should be concerned about providing essential town services as cost efficiently as possible. This means digging down into the details and determining whether each budget item is the best use of taxpayer money. This can be a number crunching challenge. Fortunately, Emily uses computer tools to do this kind of analysis in her day-to-day work. With a background in mathematics and one of managing 2 partners in a business, Emily thinks in terms of getting the most bang for the buck. That kind of care is even more important for the town budget. Every Budget Committee member has a moral and ethical duty to manage each tax dollar as if it were their own. The voters should hold all board members accountable for that duty. And again, that's Emily Sandblade. Next, this is the Budget Committee for 1 year, and this is Kyle Sonderquist.
Well, I don't have any notes. I'm Carl Soderquist. Now, if you've been paying attention, when you listen to Jan about how many years we've lived here, how many kids we have, where we live, everybody remember what Jan had to say? Lived here 40 years next year. And I must tell you, I am a newbie. I have not really been active in the community. So Jan said to me, you should go and apply for the budget committee, because she had so much fun in the budget committee. She didn't want me to lose that opportunity. And listening to you, Scott, I think I might be going to a lot of fun. I'm running unopposed, so maybe I'm being presumptuous, but I hope you vote for me. I'm the president of a company called the Hub Scrub Company, and we are a manufacturer of automated cleaning and disinfection systems for patient care equipment. So I'm in the healthcare field along with Jan, and we sell our systems throughout the US and Canada. So my background is, of course, into budgets, what sales wants, what we can afford, and I'm with Scott. I tend to be balanced. What are the needs? What are the wants? The other thing I'm struck by is I never thought of this position as politics. Maybe I'll find that out over time. But I really didn't. I felt I had an opportunity to participate in the community because I haven't. And I'm getting older. And I think maybe it's about time that maybe I can take my experience and help the community in the needs that they have, and maybe some of the wants. We do live in Grassmere. We sort of bounced around from Rhode Island to Massachusetts, and I think that's really all about it. I look forward to the position. I look forward to the challenge, and I'll give it all I can give it. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting, Carl mentioned about it's not politics, and a couple days ago, I was cruising through an old edition of Reader's Digest, and there was a little story in there, it's funny about this, that I was going to be here tonight, and the story told about a priest who goes to a barber shop, and he gets his hair cut, and the barber finishes, and the priest says, how much? And the barber says, you know, because you do such a service to the community, no charge. And the priest smiles and leaves. The next day the barber goes to work, and he goes to walk in the door. He sees sitting on the stoop a nice brand new Bible with a very nice thank you note from the priest. A little later that day, a fireman comes in, gets his hair cut. Barber gets done. The fireman says, how much? And the barber says, because you do such great work for the community, no charge. Fireman smiles and leaves. Next day, the barber shows up for work, and waiting for him on the stoop is a nice new commercial-sized fire extinguisher with a nice thank you note from the firefighter. Later on that day, a senator comes in to get his hair cut. Barber cuts his hair, he gets done. The senator says, how much? The barber says, because you work for the community, no charge. The senator smiles and leaves. Barber goes to work the next day, and waiting for him on the stoop, there's 13 more senators. I thought that's a very appropriate, cute joke. But anyway, now moving along. I know we don't have any senators, but next is the library trustee. This is a position for 3 years, and I'll call up Amy Hunterman.
Hi, I'm Amy Hunterman. We've only lived in Goffstown since about 5 days before Christmas in 2014. So I may not have experience in politics or anything here, but I was a trustee for the Taylor Library in Derry, where I lived before. I served a term and a year because we moved in the middle of my second term when we found the perfect house here in Goffstown. We absolutely, my husband and I and my daughter, we love this town so much. And that's what made me want to get involved again here. We live near Barnard Park. and we can walk to everything, and it's just the perfect sized little town, and I love the library. I think before we even moved into the house, I got my library card. As soon as I could, as soon as I had a bill that I could bring, I brought it, and I got my library card for the Goffstown Library. And there's so many things going on there all the time. I bring my daughter there. I go for the knitting club. My husband's been there for the 3D pen thing that they have, which is really cool. He brought home little things. So the whole family goes. There's always something going on. So if you haven't been lately, check it out, definitely. The job of a trustee is to make policies and do all the budget things, but it's also to advocate for the library and bring people in and get people involved from the community, and that's what I want to do. In Derry, I worked for the Taylor Library, which is the smaller of the two, and it's the oldest, but it came under fire from the town council and the town administrator there, and they threatened to close us. They actually zeroed our budget in 2013, and the trustees and I rallied the troops and rallied the community, and we saved it. Same thing happened the next year. But I'm happy to say that the Taylor Library is still thriving. It's changing with the times, and it's going on. So the libraries are what makes towns great. They're not just resources, they're the hub of the community. You can find out so much information. There's so much going on. Like I said, check it out. There's opportunities to do lots of different things, try lots of things, and just have fun. It's kind of my home away from home. So I would like the opportunity to have your vote. I'm running unopposed, but I only have like one friend in town so far, so I like to have more than 4 votes. But I want to be a little tiny part of what makes the Goffstown Public Library great and what makes this community so amazing to live in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Suzanne Reel could not be here this evening, so she sent something in for me to read for her. Suzanne, currently presiding as the vice chairperson on the Goffstown Library Board of Trustees. Suzanne's been serving the community as a board member for the past 3 years. The GPL is a critical service to our community. It has developed relationships within our school systems, offers assistance to our citizens, and supports our town as a historical marker. Suzanne is running for a second term to assist the library in moving forward with its mission. It is important to maintain a certain level of continuity as members of the board change yearly due to its structure. Having over 20 years of experience as a retail store manager, Suzanne's skill set complements the needs of the board. Suzanne is confident that her contribution as a presiding member will benefit the library, the members of the Library Board of Trustees, and the community. Suzanne is committed to our town and the services we offer that ultimately attract and maintain our population. She is asking for your support on March 8th. Okay, moving forward. Next we have the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and Gail Lebrecq is here.
Hi, everybody. First, I also want to thank the Lions Club for sponsoring this event tonight, and I want to thank each of you who came out tonight. I am Gail Lebrecq, and I am running again for a seat on the ZBA. I've lived in Goffstown for 15 years. My kids are all grown and on their own. I have 9 grandchildren. They're spread from Maine to California. I work from home. I'm a licensed child care provider, and I've done that for more than 25 years. I have worked as a recording secretary for several of the town boards, including the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, the Zoning Board, and the Capital Improvements Committee. I have done that for several years, probably longer than I've been on the ZBA, actually. And I've been on the ZBA for about 12 years now. I want to thank everybody who's voted for me in the past, and I hope you'll vote for me again this term. I really enjoy serving my community. Like others have said, I don't look at it as politics. I look at it as participating in my community. Goffstown, in all my years, Goffstown is the first town that I've lived in where the town is actually felt like it's home, something beyond my own house. And I just love this community. It has so much to offer. The people are wonderful, and the community itself is just so special. It's something that I enjoy doing, and it's something that I'm honored to do. And lastly, I just want to take a minute to get the word out there that the zoning board is a board of 5 elected members and 5 alternates. And the zoning board is frequently looking for alternates. And this particular season, we've had 1 member who has moved out of town and 1 alternate who is moving up to another uncontested seat. So we're short on alternates. And I know the zoning board isn't necessarily for anybody, but if you have half a mind to consider joining the zoning board as an alternate, I do suggest that you get in touch with somebody at the planning board, because we could really use the added bodies and the added input. It would be really great. So I hope somebody out there would consider joining us, and especially please remember to vote in March, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Pardon me, I have one more. This is, again, from Emily Sandblade, who is a current alternate member of the zoning board. Emily has been working as an alternate on the zoning board for about 8 months now. Her interests are in protecting private property rights as much as possible within the constraints of the zoning code. Goffstown zoning code is more extensive than most towns in New Hampshire. Because of this, it is harder and more expensive to improve a property or build a new structure in Goffstown. The point of the zoning law is to limit the negative impact that a change in property use might have on the surrounding neighbors. As one expert put it, quote, zoning means a tannery isn't built next to a townhouse. But it also means that it shouldn't be difficult to build a back porch onto your home or to add energy efficiency and other innovations into the property. While the zoning board cannot directly change or update the complex laws, I believe that it can send a strong and clear message that property upgrades are encouraged, that positive building innovation is encouraged, and that Goffstown is open for business. Okay, finally, come to the school board members. And this, you'll be voting for 3 people, and it's a 3-year term. And what I'm going to do is just do it alphabetically. So, starting first, Retta. You're welcome.
And again, I'd like to thank the Lions Club as well as everyone else for holding this event. I really look forward to it. I was getting a little concerned when the letter didn't come. It's like, oh, they're not going to have it again. I also really appreciate it happening in the library, because when I went to school here back in 1981, this was a place where you had to be quiet and you didn't hold these kinds of events. So I appreciate all the changes that have happened in the school libraries as well as the town libraries. I'm running for another 3-year term. 3 years ago was my first term, and I have to admit I didn't know a lot about the school board, but with my background in education, it seemed like a good fit. And I'll be really honest, it was a lot of work. The year that I came on was a year of a lot of challenges. We were Dunbarton, we had to deal with the issue of Dunbarton moving on. We had to fill a position of superintendent. We had to fill a position of a principal. We had to get a budget passed, and it was a lot of work. But I've learned so much and have really appreciated serving on a board that is really effective. And being effective doesn't mean just saying yes and voting things through. There were a lot of discussions, we didn't always agree, and I feel like I can bring that voice, but also talk openly, make decisions, and make things happen. So I'm running again for this position. I have served on a couple of subcommittees. I chair the Planning and Communications and I serve on the curriculum and education, which I find really fascinating because you don't always get to know what's happening in your schools, and this is where you learn what's happening in your schools. I grew up in Goffstown. I've went through the entire school system. I moved away after college, and about 12 years ago, I moved back to raise my family. I have 2 children in the middle school. I currently am working at one of the state colleges, and I've been the director of educational technology for the last 17 years. So education, like Carl, I felt like it was time to get back involved in the community. I'd always been involved in other communities where I lived, and education just seemed like a natural fit for me, and I look forward to serving on the board again. Thank you.
Thank you, Retta. Next is Diane McCarthy.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you to the Lions Club for having this. I'm Diane McCarthy. I'm running for school board. I live here in town with my husband and my 2 school-age boys. They're both students here in the Goffstown School District. I've lived here for about 40 years. I grew up here, went to Goffstown schools, left for a little bit, and then came back. For work, I also work here. I'm the executive director of the Crispin's House Coalition for Youth. I'm seeking re-election to my 3rd term to the school board. And I choose school board because education is something that is very important to me. I believe very strongly in the importance of education. I see it as the foundation upon which a full and productive future is built, and we want that to be strong. And if I can work to make the quality of education here in Goffstown the best that it can possibly be, then that's what I want to do. I want that for all our kids. I do recognize that there's a balance. There's a balance between the needs of running an exemplary school district and the costs associated with positive, effective learning environments, and balancing the abilities of a community and that budget. And I think I'm mindful of that. I think we work very hard to provide quality education and keep our costs in check and low. So I'm running for my 3rd term, which means I'm 6 years in. Over the past 6 years, I've done a lot. I've learned a lot. I've worked very hard for you. I work to do the best job that I can possibly do, and what that means for me is being prepared, being informed, knowing what we're coming into a meeting for, and being thoughtful. I believe a lot in talking about different ideas and really talking things through that helps make a sound and responsible decision. I think that's important in board work. I'm a strong voice at the table, and I do bring a lot of dedication. I am your current chair. I've been chair for the last 3 years. I've also been vice chair. I've been budget committee rep for 4 years. I'm on planning and communications. I'm on the facilities director search committee. I've been on the area committee, the MOU committee, principal search committee, superintendent search committee, and I'm chair of the SAU 19 board right now. So doing all that over these last few years, I've gained a lot of experience, pretty decent depth of knowledge, good, strong idea of the issues that are facing the board and how we should tackle them as we move forward. This is really good, important work. And the people you have sitting on all these boards, not just school board, but all these boards, we make a difference in our town and how things run here. So I'm Diane McCarthy, running for school board. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your consideration, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Next, we'll have Dan Cloutier come up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Cloutier. I will try to speak loudly. Thanks to Lions Club for inviting us tonight. I am also running for a 3-year term on the school board. Back in 2012, I ran for my first term on the budget committee. And that year I learned a bit. I took over the review of the town, so I saw the town budgets. The second year, they assigned me to the school, and I became the chair of the subcommittee for the school. Back then we had those. And then the following year, the committee elected me to be chair of that budget committee. It was enlightening. It was great. I enjoyed it. My background was working in the state budget office, and I had done that, so it was a good transition to do that. I ran for another term on the budget committee. I was elected by the town folk for another 3 years. My peers elected me each of those years to be chair again for those 3 years, so that was fun. Some of the times that we had during those years were interesting. So just for giggles, I ran again, and I was elected. So I spent 9 years on the budget committee. The last 7, I was elected by my peers to be chair, and it was interesting. It was a great time, but it was very hard. And so I thought it might be a nice time to run for a 3-year term on the school board, which I did, and I was elected to a 3-year term on the school board, and that was enlightening, very fun. It was between in 2012, so 2012, 13, 14, and 15. I was able to serve on the Administration and Finance Committee, the budget guy at work. We worked on, as you heard Diane mention, there was a lot of subcommittee work. We had the area committee I was able to help with. The Bartlett building committee we did. All kinds of good stuff. But the last 10 months, I took off. I did not run for re-election to the school board, but there was a vacancy that occurred in January, and I got excited. I said, hey, maybe it'd be fun. I could bring something back to the table, and I did. The board got together, they voted, and I was appointed onto the board for the last 4 meetings. And so I'm currently on the school board, but not as elected, but appointed. So that's kind of fun. And so I said, you know what, it'd be nice if I could run again for another 3-year term. And so I'm asking for your vote on March 8th so I can help again, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not coming with agenda, but I've tried to help with the school board. Some of the management I've done in the last number of years. I graduated from Southern New Hampshire University back when it was called New Hampshire College back in 1979. I moved to Goffstown the following year in 1980 when my wife and I get married, so we've been here for a little over 35 years. My wife has always been a Goffstown resident and come through the whole school system. What are some of the other things? Currently, I'm an assistant secretary of state. I work in the state offices. I'm the chief information and data security officer. I know a lot about computers, and I begged the chair to be on the technology committee, and that was fun. We don't meet very often, but I enjoy that kind of thing. You hear Gary Gerolman come in, and we're talking about dark fiber and lighting it up and saving money in that respect, and I completely understand all the tech talk he's talking about, and that's exciting for me. So, again, thanks to the Lions Club. Thanks for all of you for coming out tonight, and my name is Dan Cloutier. My name will appear on a ballot as Daniel J. Cloutier, but I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Now I'd like to call up John Stafford.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Lions Club, for inviting us here tonight. Wow, the last 3 people that spoke make me wonder why I decided to wanted to do this again. It's been a lot of years since I've been involved in town boards and so forth. 15, as a matter of fact. Left for health reasons at the time after serving 3 years on the budget committee, 3 years on the school board, 1 year on the Rails to Trails committee. I enjoyed all of those things. I think the thing that I enjoyed most was bringing consensus to the townspeople in projects and so forth. During the time that I served on the school board and the budget committee, the big issue around town was the Goffstown High School renovation and the additions and so forth to the other schools. We had gone through 2 years of having the bonds turned down because they wanted $20 million to do the projects and so forth. That seemed to be a bit excessive to me. So I wanted to go to some of the school board and budget meetings and find out what was going on. Ended up deciding to run for budget committee. Worked with the school and with Dr. Lockwood, the current superintendent back then, an excellent person, by the way, to come forward with a plan that was acceptable to the town. We pared it down to what we called the Goffstown Taj Mahal at the time, planned to a $12 million plan that provided more education space, more technology, more of what the town needed, rather than more of what the few of the people in the town that had come up with the previous plan wanted. Those wants were nice, but there are a lot of people in town who are on fixed incomes. Goffstown used to be a lot more elderly than it is now, but there are still a lot of elderly people in town who need to be cognizant of where their money goes. They need to be able to continue to live in the town that they've grown up in, spent their whole life, raised their families in, and not be priced out of town by excessive budgets. When I worked with the school board and budget committee, we came to consensus because we provided what was really needed. The bond was passed that first year. It was brought forward. The result is this beautiful high school that we have now. 15 years later, it still looks very nice to me, coming back to seeing it now. I want to continue to advocate both for education for our students, both relevant and quality education. Relevant being making sure that they are provided with what they need to go out into the workforce today. Some of that I understand because my wife has 28 years teaching experience. So I've grown up with, over the years, with experience both from an education point of view and a conservative budget point of view. I think for the last few years, the budget committees and the school board members have done a very good job keeping costs down. This year in particular, I was impressed when I went to the town meeting for the school side of the budget with both the presentation and the amounts of work that obviously went in to come to a reasonable amount of money for the town to provide their education. As a little bit of knowledge on my experience, when I was on this budget committee, I worked with the school, as I said. When I was elected to the school board 3 years later, I was appointed back to the budget committee to be the school board's rep. So I get to play both sides of the aisle on both ends. And that was a lot of work and a lot of time. And my health at the time was a lot less quality than it is now. I've since retired. While I was on the school board, I served as co-chair of the renovation committee here at the high school with Ellen Vermachowitz. Scott Gross was on the school board with me at the time. He's been around a long time and continued to work, and I thank Scott for all his time and effort that he's put in over the years. Just would like to get involved again now that I'm retired and help to do things for both sides of issues in town, both the expenses and the needs. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Now I'd like to call up Rodney Stark, the town moderator.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Lions Club. The first time the Lions Club had one of these candidates nights, it was at the Methodist Church up on North Mass. And I remember Tony Branch was running against me for moderator. And he told everybody how long he'd lived in town, and everybody said how long they'd lived in town. And I got up and I said, well, I got you all beat, because I was born in town. As a matter of fact, I was born in a hospital that doesn't exist anymore. And one of my fondest, well, maybe fond memories, being moderator, this was when we used to have real town meeting. Moderators can only vote when there's a dead even tie. In other words, they can't vote otherwise. They can only vote if their vote makes a difference, okay? And with a dead even tie, it doesn't pass. We're familiar with that with what we've been hearing in the news lately, but there was a tie vote on whether or not the town was going to sell the Moore General Hospital, because it owned it at the time. And I had the tie-breaking vote, and I voted to sell it. And now it's a car dealer. But anyway, I've had a lot of fond memories being moderator. I really like the job. I've been doing it since 1980. We just went through my 9th presidential primary. Back, people were talking about politics in the job. Well, I am apolitical in terms of the operation of this job. And Goffstown is probably as strict as any town I know of in terms of not allowing any campaigning around the school. Steve Forbes, the first time he ran for president, he did it twice. But the first time he did it, he brought his bus and his entourage and all of his people into the parking lot over here, and we were in the gym at that time, and he brought them all right into the gym, and he started glad-handing people, and we had to actually run him out. So, and we don't let any, as you know, if you've tried to campaign here, you have to keep your signs out on Wallace Road. You go to Manchester and you have to beat your way to get to the door for some of these wards. You know, I pride myself on enforcing that. Was the rule when I took over from Lloyd Sorensen in 1980, and so I don't really have a platform speech. The job doesn't pay diddly. So I'm not doing it for that. I guess it gets to your picture in the paper, right? That's my resume right there. But I run the elections. This year there are 4 of them. Every 4th year, there are 4 elections. You got your presidential primary, then you got town meeting, which is really 2 meetings, and then you have your state primary in September, and then you have the general election in November. Next year, there's only 1 town meeting. There's always at least 1. Next year will be like a year off. And I have to say, Elaine Emerton, one of the proud Lions, right here. She took over as town clerk. She was deputy town clerk under George Amo when I became moderator. And I became moderator because I got a call from George. He said, Lloyd Sorensen doesn't want to do it anymore. What would you think about running for moderator? And I said, well, I got to talk to Lloyd and I got to check it out. And so then Elaine, when George retired, she became town clerk. And she spent a long time in that office. And then she was followed by Marlene. Marlene came next. And then Donna Bergeron, now Kathy Ball. And they're all great. There's no way I could do the job without the town clerks. They run it. I don't care what the paper says. They run the elections. And I've been able to surround myself with good quality people. And I try to keep everything, I keep the politics out of it the best I can, and nobody's running against me, so I guess I really don't have to say much more than that. But thanks again.
Thank you, Rodney. Are there any other candidates here that did not get called up? I don't know if anyone stuck into the room or anything, just wanted to make sure. Okay. A couple of things. If the candidates could just stay for a few extra minutes. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to speak to them. But I'd also like to say that really appreciate the people who are here this evening. And I know there are people who couldn't make it. But to run for the offices, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's for the budget, zoning, library, it takes time. It takes time out of your schedule. And I think it says a lot about those of you who do run, because we all have very, very busy lives, that you are willing to sacrifice some of your personal time to represent all of us in the town on a lot of different boards. So I'd like an applause for the candidates who are running this evening.